Well, let's start with a few thought experiments and observations during which we'll explore how well we can conjure up visions from memory. I first want us to explore how clearly we can imagine space and form in our mind's eye. I want you to imagine you have been made unconscious and kidnapped. You wake up sitting in a room about which you know nothing and which is completely dark. In a classroom situation, we imagine it is the very classroom we're in. You regain consciousness, you open your eyes, and the blackness and your eyes do not adjust to it. It remains utterly black. You're not tied up, you are just sitting in a dark room. What will you do? If you wish, push pause on the video for a moment and just think about it. Okay, here's what I've come up with. The first thing I want to know is that I'm not in some kind of a coffin. Out go my arms to establish that I have space around me and that fact will alleviate my claustrophobia. I will almost instantly listen and smell. Can I hear something outside of the room like traffic? Anything in the room like ventilation or dripping? Does the room smell wet or moldy, like a basement or a cave? These observations take place almost unconsciously. I will probably ask the obvious question, "Hello? Anybody there?" No answer. I might shout louder, "Anybody there?" I will be wanting to know if the sound of my own voice echoes as in a larger space or is muffled as in a smaller space. The quality of the sound will tell me a lot about my surroundings, whether the room is large and empty or small and cluttered with sound-absorbing objects. There is, of course, no reply to the shouting. Did you know that with practice, blind people can actually, quote-unquote, see things like a bat does with sound by making clicking noises? Not very well, but they can actually discern whether a surface is concave or convex. Eventually, I might stand up and start to move around the room. I might walk forward until I hit an object, at which sometime I will feel the object for a sense of its form, then move on. Perhaps I can identify that object too, you know. Perhaps I came to a wall. I move left or right and keep creeping around, feeling for windows or door handles or any kind of information. If I find doors, they're locked. Hours of this go by, of my exploring by touch and apparently non-visual senses. I might do complete circuits of the space, recognizing prominences on the wall that I have returned to. I might have headed back and forth across the room, counting paces, rediscovering the chair and possibly other objects, but rediscovering the chair I originally left. At the end of this time, I'm no closer to finding a way out, but over the hours, what have I successfully done? Yes, I've made a map. I have also, in a way, created an image of what the room looks like. What does that image look like? Like an ultrasound, an X-ray, an electron microscope image? Mine is certainly without color. Is the image shaded? Does our memory of what actual rooms look like fill in some of the gaps? Is it just linear vectors and data? We will never know because there is no place in the brain with a cinema screen that stores whole images. We simply think we see things in our imagination. At very best, we might see something like this astonishing drawing made by a Texas inmate in his 60s who had spent his whole life, since his late teens, on death row in solitary confinement, a room just like this for 23 hours a day and 1 hour a day taking exercise in a larger room or courtyard. The inmate does not understand perspective, it seems, but the drawing has everything conceptually that we will be studying in the next few classes. It has points, multiple points that infer vectors, and vectors that can become lines. Multiple lines converge to form shapes, which are planes. Planes converge to create forms. This is what it is all about. No shading yet, but we'll deal with that later. The inmate artist has meticulously documented his world, which is something that any self-respecting artist is wont to do. Back to our own inner drawing of the room, whatever the information we accumulated about it might look like in our minds, suddenly throw the lights on. The shock of actually seeing with our eyes completely and not using our imagination takes us aback. Initially, we feel that what we are seeing is nothing like what we imagined. But over time, a few minutes at most, as we explore the room with our eyes, what was in our imagination merges with what we now see before us. So much so that what we once saw without our eyes merges seamlessly with what we now see.